Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on ACPS TV and streamed on ACPS YouTube channel. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read this if you have not already. And as we begin, I want to welcome Ms. Jackson back to the dais. Dr. Bedell is on business out of town, but he will be joining us eventually virtually as well, which is why we have our friend sitting there. So, okay, so this brings us to the invocation. If everyone would please pause. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So that brings us to item 2.03, approval of the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Do I have consensus? Thank you. Item 2.04, establish agenda order. Do I have a motion?
Move to proceed with agenda as printed.
Second.
Do I have consensus? Thank you. All right. Item 2.05, recognition. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you, President Tobin. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Jen Lombardi, Senior Manager of School and Family Partnerships, to come forward to present this evening's recognition.
Good evening, Dr. Tobin, Mr. Silkworth, members of the board, and Ms. Jackson. I am Jen Lombardi, Senior Manager of School and Family Partnerships, and it's my honor tonight to present this evening's recognition. Before I begin, I'd like to ask the members of the board and Ms. Jackson to please come forward. Thank you. Relationships are at the heart of everything we do in AACPS on behalf of the students and communities we serve. Since arriving in August, Dr. Bedell has been clear that enhancement of positive, professional, and collaborative relationships with faith-based organizations, business leaders, service organizations, and nonprofits, among others, is one of his key objectives for this year. One of Anne Arundel County Public Schools' long-standing relationship is the one we have with Comcast. Chris Comer, Director, Government and Regulatory Affairs for Comcast Beltway Region, and John Conwell, Senior Director, Regulatory Affairs for Comcast Northeast Division, are true partners in education. They have generously given of their time and talents to support the students and schools of our county. For many, many years, Mr. Comer and Mr. Conwell have actively shared information with schools about Comcast's Internet Essentials program, which provides low-cost internet access and computer hardware to families in need with school-age children. They send flyers to school, provide presentations at meetings, and come to our school and community events just to share information. Mr. Comer proudly says that even if only one family is in need, he will be there. Mr. Conwell is no stranger to the members of the board either. He serves as vice chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee. He is the secretary for the Education Foundation of AACPS. He brings his ideas and his experiences to every conversation he has about our school system, and we are better for it. In addition to supporting the Education Foundation with his generous contributions, Comcast has been the headline sponsor for the Excellence in Education Awards for more than 20 years. Their commitment to recognizing our outstanding educators has been unwavering. While some sponsors provide monetary support and may not attend events, which is fine because we love all our sponsors, Comcast is almost always represented, and Mr. Comer and Mr. Conwell regularly asked what more is needed. Never was that more apparent than in the spring of 2020, when the school system approached Comcast for assistance. During the early months of COVID closures, we learned that we had hundreds of families who, for some reason or another, did not have internet access. In most cases, it was a matter of connecting families with resources through programs like Comcast Internet Essentials or with school system provided Wi-Fi hotspots. For others, it was a bit more complicated. Some homes in the Comcast service area were so far from the main lines that it was cost prohibitive to get them connected. Making matters even worse, many of these homes were in areas with poor cell phone service, rendering Wi-Fi hotspots useless. When Comcast learned that we had a few students with special needs who were living in these homes, they jumped through hoops and made all kinds of exceptions to get these households connected at no cost to our families. Mr. Conwell cannot be here with us this evening, but we are pleased Mr. Comer is here with us. As he comes forward, please join me in thanking him and everyone at Comcast who is committed to ensuring that students have the access they need to learn and succeed.
Thank you.
Put us where you want us. We're trying to get away from
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and thank you again to Comcast for all the incredible support you have provided for so very long. We truly appreciate it. The difference it has made to our families is incomparable. So thank you. All right, this brings us to public comment. Where I need to find my. All right. All right, speakers will be allotted 2 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. The yellow light below me will shine when you have 30 seconds remaining. The red light below me will shine and you will hear a tone when your time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. Please speak only on the topic which you signed up to speak on. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name. Before speaking, handouts should be given to the board assistant. So we will begin. I will call up the first 4 speakers who are speaking in person and ask you to take seats here and then come up one by one. So Ms. Nicole Disney Bates, Ms. Deb Hollingshead, Ms. Betsy Brenninger, and Mr. Brian Johnson.
Oh, you want me to speak first?
Yeah, then I'll call you
Oh,
up
I
in
see, that's how it works.
the order,
I
yes.
see.
So, Ms. Disney Bates.
Sure. Hi, nice to see you again. My name is Nicole Disney Bates, and I am the TAC president. When I started a while ago at Manorview Elementary, we were a school that had a focus on Mandarin. When we started, we had a class that taught Mandarin. In year 2, ACPS brought Triple E to our school. The students not only were learning Mandarin, but they were experiencing Chinese culture and Mandarin. It was really cool to see the students participating in project-based learning. This is really good teaching and increases student learning. While this teaching strategy should be in every classroom, this is a special time focused on experiential learning. Beyond this time for our students to experience learning, Triple E provides extra time for teachers to plan. This extra time allows teachers to do what we would like. It provides extra time to create project-based learning in their own classrooms, to collaborate and explore new ideas. Teachers desperately need the time. And the more time the teachers have, the more able teachers are to provide differentiated lessons, project-based learning, etc. So please, fund Triple E to provide extra opportunities for our students to explore the world they live in. I know this board loves my stories. But today, instead of a story, because I do have really good ones, I want to leave you with a thought, with a memory. Have you ever been in a class where you created something? Do you remember what you made? Do you remember how you felt when you created it? I do. I created a maglev train, and I remember it. And hopefully that memory, that one you're thinking of right now, you remember it too. That's what Triple E provides, the opportunity to create, to think outside the box, to experience. I remember my experience. Do you? ACPS students, they deserve that experience too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hollingshead.
Hello, my name is Deborah Hollingshead, and I am a fourth grade teacher as well as an AACPS parent. Tonight, I am speaking to you as an advocate for the students of the Old Mill Cluster. These students are undoubtedly deserving of the Triple E program. We have been teased with the prospect of the Triple E program for a long time. Year after year, it shows up in the budget, and year after year, it gets chopped. This is deeply inequitable. What message is this sending to some of our neediest students? The high number of Title I schools in our cluster showcases the need for these enriching programs. Implementing Triple E will unquestionably help expand their horizons, sparking an interest in the arts or STEM, and leading to a more positive outlook and focus in their core classes as well. Every day, teachers strive to teach equality, equity, justice, fairness, and standing up for what is right. Teachers in this cluster, however, are left to deal with inequities in their in-school planning time. Triple E was created in part to address this issue. We all know that AACPS has a teacher shortage. Having less in-school planning time puts our non-Triple E students at even more of a disadvantage when it comes to the hiring and retention of dedicated and passionate educators. I would not be doing my job as a teacher and advocate for students and educators if I did not come forward to speak up and ask you to reconsider. Money is just that, money. But opportunity, that is priceless. We cannot put a price tag on expanding the horizons of our students and respecting our teachers. After all, students are the future, and all students are worth it. We hear from you, the board, that AACPS is equitable and just, and that the board values all AACPS students. All means all. Please put into practice what you stand on as a platform. Justice and equity at their core mean access. Please show us that you truly understand that all means all by funding the Triple E program for the Old Mill Cluster this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brenninger.
Good evening, President Tobin, Ms. Jackson, and members of the board. My name is Betsy Breininger, and I'm a resident of Glen Burnie and also a Triple E teacher at Pershing Hill Elementary School. I'm saddened to find myself here again this year, encouraging you to retain funding for the expansion of the Triple E program to Old Mill. In 2014, a small, enthusiastic, and terrified group of teachers, myself included, launched the Triple E program. It's been 9 years of extraordinary teaching and extraordinary learning in only some, unfortunately, of our elementary schools. We currently exist in 8 of the 13 clusters. If COVID hadn't happened and some budget issues, we would have been almost to the point where we would have unrolled Triple E to all of our elementary school districts. And we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. Triple E is a program that's based on collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and communication. I dare one of you to tell me that your jobs here tonight don't include all 4 of those things. And what better way to have our students learn to grow to be citizens of the 21st century than to work daily on those examples. You'll hear later from some of my colleagues the words of their own students in terms of how it's affected them. But in today's classrooms, which are decidedly different than those we saw a few years ago, the curriculum which focuses on SEL as one of its important elements really makes a difference. The students get a chance to authentically build student self-management as they look at projects and things that interest them. I encourage you to think about the fact that we are not going to be pulling seasoned teachers and put them into Triple E, take them away from classrooms where we need folks. Because many of us, myself included, would have left AACPS 9 years ago, 10 years ago at the beginning. This has kept me here learning how to teach better, do some of the best teaching of my life. And I know my colleagues who are hanging out back there are in the same situation. Many of us would have gone elsewhere. So it's important to not think of us as robbing from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies for mispronouncing your name, Ms.
That's okay.
Breiniger.
It's a tough one. That's why my kids call me Speed.
Yeah. Mr. Johnson.
Hi, I'm Brian Johnson. I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak on the elimination of the Triple E enhancement for the Old Mill cluster. I also want to thank our teachers that have spoke up for it as well. I am not a teacher. I am just a parent of a child in the Old Mill cluster. And I can't help but be concerned about the decision to eliminate this enhancement. STEM activities, STEM in education, and learning about varieties of cultures throughout the world could not be more important in the culture and the environment that our kids are growing up in. Eliminating this from the Old Mill cluster again makes me feel as though our children are being targeted and are being placed at a significant disadvantage as it relates to the other clusters that do have this opportunity. It's especially concerning that they are not being allotted the same funding and the same opportunities that their peers are. And talking with friends that work in AACPS and seeing the experiences that their children have with the Triple E program, I can't help but reconsider where we've chosen to live. And that's a concern of mine. And with that being said, I really would urge the board to reconsider their decision.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move to virtual public comment now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Now we have our virtual portion of public testimony. Speakers will be allotted 2 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. Ms. Howe will indicate when your time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Our first speaker, speaking on item 6.07, the superintendent's budget, Marlena Pearsall.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you so very much. Good evening. For the record, my name is Marlena Colleton Purcell, Triple E teacher. Greetings, Ms. Jackson, board chair, and all on the dais. I am Marlena Colleton Purcell, and I have been before you, as I indicated, for the first time last time. I thought I was one and done, but now you see I'm back again. I'm more passionate than ever because I'm speaking on behalf of other Triple E teachers who were not selected tonight. If you recall, I brought posters on behalf of the Triple E teachers, and I thought the visual posters might help to say, you know, we really do want it in the budget. And then, like many, I read the amendment over the weekend and was immediately filled with emotions. When reviewing the two amendments, you allocated funds for the Amendment 1 to be used for a new position. However, the second amendment, I didn't see where the money was supposed to go. I wanted to hear your rationale tonight since none was given in written form. I also, if you recall, last time I met with you, I invited you to a Triple E school. And I'm not sure if you actually got there, so I'm bringing the school building to you. As you can see, this is where your money can be spent. I'm circulating my room around just in case you have a second heart and want to come into the classroom. I'm speaking on behalf of many Triple E teachers. Lisa Shefnick, she spent 13 years teaching computer science in the high school level before teaching Triple E. During that time, it was apparent that students' fear of failure hindered the creativity when attempting to solve problems. Triple E provides the much needed development of collaborative skills, acceptance of ideas, and encouragement of creativity when problem solving. Here's another quote, Robin Suda. We learn that it is okay to stop, rethink your idea, change as new information becomes available to you. These skills will help in the real world and help to prepare students for college and career readiness. Another quote, Kathleen McDougall, excuse me. My students gain the skills they needed to function in an everyday chasing world. They collaborate with their teams. They communicate their needs. They ask questions because they're curious. I end tonight. Please reconsider. Fair means everyone gets what they need. And the only way we get that is you make it happen.
Thank you, Pearsall. Thank you. Our next speaker on item 6.07, the superintendent's recommended budget, Michelle Alfaro Moretti. It doesn't appear as if Michelle Alfaro Moretti is here this evening. Our next speaker is Terry Reese, speaking on item 6.07, superintendent's recommended budget.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Terry Reese, and I'm a Triple E teacher at Lakeshore Elementary and formerly the Triple E teacher at Pershing Hill and an AACPS parent. I'm here tonight to support the expansion of the Triple E program to the Old Mill cluster. I'm in support of this program because I have seen the benefits over these last 8 years in this position. I have witnessed students' growth in their creativity, their critical thinking, communication, and their collaboration skills. The proof is in the pudding. I have some student statements from kids at my school who were asked anonymously, what unique experiences does the Triple E classroom offer? And here's what they said. We learn how to relax and feel better. We learn about different cultures from around the world. We try new things. We can be explorers. We learn how to communicate better to express our ideas. We learn about self-care and how to deal with our emotions. Either if it's doing crafts, discovery stations, or anything else, I learned how to manage my feelings in a super fun way. I learned to always stay positive and that calms me down. I learned to be positive and creative. I learned to share good news with others and have good teamwork, how to learn and work in different ways. You can learn how to build different things and how to be creative. We learned yoga and it helped me relieve my stress and help me manage my strong feelings. I learned that we can have fun doing projects and talk to our group members to share our ideas. I learned how to think outside the box without being stopped. I learned that I have a creative mind. I then asked the students anonymously, how do you feel when you're in the Triple E classroom? And they said, I feel good, I feel excited. Triple E is my favorite class. I feel happy and calm and content. I feel like I can be myself. I feel open to other people than just my friends. I feel excited to learn how to be creative. I feel free to say my honest opinion and talk with others about how they think about different things. I feel good because I can express my inner creativity. I work with my table group and I can work with my teacher.
Please
This
summarize, Ms. Reese.
Old Mill Cluster deserve to have these feelings and experiences as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Kristen Sims, speaking on 6.07 Superintendent's recommended budget.
Thank you so much for taking the time to gather feedback for your proposed amendments. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Kristen Sim, and I'm a proud parent of a 3rd grade student and a kindergarten student at Ridgeway Elementary, where I also teach 5th grade, Go Mustangs. And I want to make sure that I'm teaching my students to use their voice to make a positive impact and the importance of advocating. So I wanted to take this opportunity to advocate for the Old Mill Cluster. Specifically, I want to speak with you about the proposed amendment to cut the budget for EE in the Old Mill Cluster. I'm disappointed to see that once again, Old Mill is possibly not receiving the program. I've had the opportunity to get to know more about the EE program over the years and the benefits of it. And it's an opportunity that my students would greatly benefit from. And the importance of this can't be overstated. And this is why I'm happy that so many clusters have EE. And I think it's very important and I'm happy for them. But I'm disappointed to know that my students haven't received the same opportunities that other students have. The 5th graders that I currently teach could have had the benefits of the program since we were first told we might get the program in 2016 when they were in kindergarten. But their educational opportunities have been denied because of our zip code and where we live. And now they're going to middle school without the benefits of the EE program. The Old Mill EE program has made it through a lot of stages of the budget throughout the years, and you as the Board of Ed have supported it several times. But I was disheartened to know that this time you were not talking about cutting funding for the program. Because as you know, the council and the executive are not allowed to add any more funds than are already requested. They can't create any new programs that they find important. So it's up to you as the esteemed board members to request funding for the program. I'm asking the Board of Education to decline that proposed amendment to cut the funding for the EE program for the Old Mill Cluster. Please help ensure that my students and my children are provided the same benefits and opportunities as other elementary students across the county. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sim. Our next speaker is Harmony Kleskovich, speaking on item 6.07 Superintendent's recommended budget.
Good evening. My name is Harmony Kleskovic, and I am an AACPS parent and a STEM teacher in our EE program. The program enhancement for EE in the Old Mill Cluster must remain in the budget. If this county is committed to culturally responsive teaching, as our Unity Days and equity professional developments would indicate, then our EE program must expand to more schools. The foundation of the program is rooted in project-based learning. Project-based learning is an equitable strategy that supports our students' cognitive processing in its 3rd stage, application. Zaretta Hammond writes about engaging students by putting them in a productive struggle in order to create more independent learners. In our EE classrooms, the students experience that by investigating real-world problems, giving and receiving feedback, making improvements to their ideas, trying and failing in a safe space, and persevering. Additionally, the EE environment fosters the development of the 4 C's of 21st century skills. You've heard my colleagues speak about these earlier: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. It is not equitable for us to eliminate the expansion of the EE program. I'll let one of my students, Max, tell you why.
We're missing out on being able to experience their creativity and their teamwork skills and everything that they use in their everyday life, we use in STEM.
Just as we strive for all educators in our county to practice equity, we should be embracing equity by providing all students with this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jonah Morris, speaking on item 6.07, Superintendent's recommended budget.
Good evening. I'm strictly speaking from experience, from my point of view as well as students. Good evening. My name is Jonathan Morris. I am also a triple E teacher. I started my teaching journey as a teacher's assistant in another county in Maryland for a few years with a degree in English non-teaching specifically. Being from a small town with very few windows of opportunity, I knew that I wanted more for myself. My name was referred to Chris Hanks and the untapped potential that I could potentially bring to a classroom. And I really must say that I'm so glad that Triple E and the team took a chance on me. Personally, Triple E has changed my quality of life, the way that I approach teaching, and I was able to receive my master's degree in teaching through this program. I was fortunate to have an older brother who was in the US Navy who would tell me from his experience, there is so much, or there is such a bigger world outside of the small town that we live in. Following in my brother's footsteps with my experience in the military and what I've learned as a global studies teacher, I'm able to bring that same sentiment to the students that I serve. Working in 2 Title I schools, I realized quickly that the students that I serve, working in those 2 schools, I realized quickly that some students that I serve are not as fortunate enough to view themselves as bigger than their current circumstances, and that work comes into play. Prior to COVID, we were able to take 100 5th graders to the African-American Smithsonian in DC. And for some of them, this was their first experience in a museum, and even for some, their first time outside of their hometown. The smiles, the laughter, and excitement filled that museum, and for many of them, that was an experience that they'll cherish for the rest of their lives. Triple E affords students experiences that they may have not otherwise at this age. Our global studies theme gives students an opportunity not only to develop a stronger sense of the world, but also the optics of who they are in their own communities. Our STEM theme serves as a program to be innovators.
Mr. Morris, can you please summarize?
Basically, what I'm saying is that this program is very pivotal to our students, and I believe those 4 C's of creativity, communication, collaboration, and communication are pivotal to our children's learning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michelle Alfaro Moretti, speaking on item 6.07, Superintendent's recommended budget.
Hello, my name is Michelle, and I have been working in education for about 20 years. I am currently a Triple E teacher at Windsor Farm. I have taught Triple E for the last 4 years, and I had a speech laid out, but I feel like everybody's covered a lot of what I wanted to say. So I'm going to piggyback on what we are really pushing for. I'm going to speak from the heart. As a student, an ELL student, a long time ago, I remember those classes that brought me joy and invited me and gave me that chance to take a risk. And Triple E has been that class for so many students. We try to have students come in, collaborate, communicate, create, do the critical thinking skills in a very low risk environment. And we invite all these students into our classrooms to have that chance. So I want us to be able to think about how to support all these students, think about how these skills are going to transfer as they leave our school, as they go through those doors of higher education, as they go accomplish their occupations in the future. Those are all life skills that they're going to continue on once they leave our doors. I want us to think about the students that have that sense of joy at one point in their week coming into a different classroom that's so different from what they experience from day in and day out. I have 2 students, my own children, a kindergartner and a 3rd grader, and they thrive. They love Triple E, and they don't even have me. They have another Triple E teacher. So it's just that we want to give these opportunities to all the students in Anne Arundel County. I want you to feel that stirring to action, that love and trust, and try to take that understanding and create that opportunity for Old Mills Parole. And that's all I have to say. All means all.
Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the virtual public comment this evening. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. And thank you to all the speakers. I note that Dr. Bedell has joined us virtually, so welcome back, Dr. Bedell. This brings us to item 4.01, one of our very favorite things every month, the CRASC report. Ms. Fidel.
Good evening, President Tobin, Vice President Silkworth.
He's coming back.
Okay. Members of the board and Mrs. Jackson. My name is Michelle Fidel. I am a freshman at Chesapeake High School. My pronouns are she, her, and I am very grateful to serve as CRASC Secretary of Education. CRASC held a virtual town hall on February 1st and a virtual exec team meeting on the 8th. During that meeting, we held our equity training presented by the CRASC Equity Department. We discussed different forms of biases and how to respond to them. This was perfect timing considering we celebrated kindness, acceptance, and inclusion for Unity Day. Also on February 8th, the CRASC Middle School Council held a virtual General Assembly with participants from all over the county. Students' concerns were discussed, and our phenomenal middle school coordinator, Sia Jane, and vice chairs, Lena Babb, Ife Fidel, and Nuolo Suber, presented workshops on SMART goals and 6 aspects of wellness. Be sure to check out February episode of Teen Talk on AACPS YouTube channel. This month's episode highlights the student member of the board position. Host Cameron Chair interviewed our current SMOB and our previous SMOB members and a special in-studio guest, Dr. Anthony Arend, the second SMOB in AACPS, who was the first SMOB with full voting rights. Y'all, you got to check out the episode.
Yeah. And he was a professor of mine.
Yes, he is a professor. Last Saturday, MASC held its legislative session at Wheaton High School. We had more than 40 voting delegates from AACPS in attendance. Students took part in the legislative workshop, voted on bill stances, and voted for the 2 state SMOB finalists. Congratulations to Abby Shola, Iowa from Howard County and Madison Watts from Montgomery County. Both names will be forwarded to Governor Moore, and he will select one to serve as the next state SMOB. A highlight of the day was our guest speaker, Maryland Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller. Her message was impactful and inspiring. In honor of National School Counseling Week last week, CRASC would like to share our appreciation to our AACPS awesome counselor. Thank you for all you do, from scheduling our classes, to mentoring us, to even welcoming us back to our first day of school, and much more. We appreciate and thank you for all the work you do to make our school experiences better. CRASC will also like to thank SGAs, Key Clubs, and school plunge teams for their fundraising effort to support Special Olympics in Maryland at the 2023 Cool Schools Plunge. What an amazing way to support acceptance and inclusion. The February CRASC newsletter is now available on our website, Brightspace, and on our Instagram at CRASC_online. Finally, if any student wants to find out more about CRASC and our amazing works, make sure to check the CRASC website, which can be found at www.aacps.org/CRASC. The calendar on the website provides a list of upcoming events and leadership events. Thank you so much, and see you in my next CRASC update in March. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fidel. Item 4.02, CAC report. Do we have?
Good evening, President Tobin, Vice President Silkworth, fellow board members, and Dr. Fidel. For the record, my name is Keisha Howard, the Chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee, otherwise known as the CAC. On behalf of the CAC body, I am pleased to have this opportunity to share and update the board on our recent regular meeting held on Monday, February 13th. As a reminder for the public, the CAC conducts our meetings virtually on the second Monday of each month from 6:45 to 8:45, except April. Our meeting schedule is currently posted on our AACPS webpage under the board tab on the AACPS website. We have 2 remaining meetings for this calendar year, and we encourage all to join our upcoming meetings. As you know, you may be able to submit your name and email address to the CAC secretary at cacsecretary@gmail.com. If you're interested, visit our webpage for more information. Next, Perspectives and Impacts, which launched in 2021 in honor of the late Honorable Candace C.W. Antwine, featured a presentation from Tamar Beggar with AACPS Family Academy on Brightspace for a demonstration and overview of the application capabilities. Since this is a key education tool, the extension for engagement capabilities between the Family Academy, parents, and students is a wonderful creative asset. This demonstration continues our deep dive to gain insights for our further awareness and also potential future endeavors of our committee work. In preparation for the next school year, we have outlined the May ballot nominations required for CAC leadership positions, as well as those to be appointed to the board policy and board equity committees. During the months of March and April, those interested to learn more of these positions will have ample opportunity to explore with current members to ensure nominations can be submitted no later than April 24th. Also, we take this opportunity to obtain the 2023-2024 member intentions so that we can submit vacancies for consideration in April to the board office. Now on to the heart of the CAC, our subcommittees. Our breakout sessions included hate and bias, ready to read, early literacy, and wellness lens. For hate and bias, they have completed their final draft definitions and crafting of the mission vision statement. Their next meeting is scheduled February 23rd from 6:30 to 7:30. Ready to Read Early Literacy is planning to meet to perform edits to their final report document. Their next meeting will be February 27th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. The Wellness Lens reviewed virtual instruction day from Prince George's, Howard, and Montgomery counties policies for comparison and potential insights for recommendations. Their next meeting is scheduled for March 3rd at 6 p.m. As always, we'll continue to report routine updates on progress made over the coming months. In closing, we would like to thank those of the community who continue to support us, joining the conversation, sharing your journeys, and collaborating on a chance to change and impact education within AACPS. We also would like to thank and recognize all new members for participating in an engaging and insightful conversation in our implicit bias training held January 19th with Dr. Maisha Gillens. Next month, we'll continue exploring the topic of volunteering in support of the CAC motion adopted by having AACPS representative from Service Learning exploring class and course requirements and the way the community service and support is tasked at the elementary and secondary levels. Again, this will allow us to learn more about the organization of the program and its impact and satisfaction of objectives to determine next steps for the CAC. As we stated earlier, with 2 official meetings remaining this year, our subcommittees are working to finalize topics and their engagements to complete the remaining work. We likewise look forward to onboarding CAC members the board will appoint tonight. There is still much activity in which new members can participate and looking forward to their collaboration, allowing for divergent and diverse voices. We welcome and appreciate everyone's feedback and to meet our purpose and present results to meet the challenges at hand and into the future. Thank you and see you next month.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 4.03. It's not that bad. It's just the president's report. And I'll try to be brief. I'd like to send a couple of thank yous. First, thank you to the Anne Arundel Retired School Personnel Association for inviting me to attend their meeting on February 9th. It was wonderful to hear the many initiatives undertaken by this incredible group of individuals who continue to find ways to give back to the schools and community they served with such devotion and professionalism for so many years. It was an honor to be able to address the gathering and convey thanks on behalf of the entire board for the work so much of their membership has done for AACPS, including coming back into our schools as substitutes and full-time teachers as we have worked to fill some of our gaps. Another thank you also to the Annapolis Rotary for inviting Dr. Bedell and myself to address their monthly luncheon also on February 9th. It was a busy day. We were thrilled to see a packed house of such an enthusiastic response. I know from my experience as an Annapolis High parent how valuable the work the Rotary does for our students is, including conducting mock interviews and financial literacy workshops, among many other things. We are grateful for their continued support, partnership, and enthusiasm. So that concludes my report, which brings us to item 4.04, the Budget Committee report. Ms. Schulheim.
Yes, the Budget Committee met this past Monday, and we spoke about tonight's amendments in terms of process, how they'll be laid out, which you'll see shortly. And we spoke about funding updates, which we will hear more about later on in the agenda. And that was about it. It's a pretty quick meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, and the committee, as always, for your work getting us to this evening. So that brings us to item 4.05, the Superintendent's report. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you so much, Madam President. For the record, I am Monique Jackson, Deputy Superintendent for Student and School Support. I have 5 items to present to you all on behalf of Dr. Bedell this evening. First, some great news regarding our student athletes. Chesapeake and Glen Burnie High Schools each won state cheerleading championships yesterday as we entered the postseason in all of our winter sports. The title was the 17th for Chesapeake in its history, and Glen Burnie captured its 3rd championship. We are very proud of them, and we are all of all of our student athletes and our teams. Next, as you discussed at your workshop on Monday, our staff is hard at work on finalizing our school system's draft blueprint plan. I want to commend Acting Chief Operating Officer Matt Stansky and Director of Community and School-Based Programming, Dr. Shannon Pugh, for the amazing job that they have done leading this effort. I also thank everyone on our team who has worked so hard on this plan, and for all of our community members who have submitted feedback. We are truly one of the leaders in blueprint implementation and planning in the state. If you have not done so, you can submit your thoughts through Sunday, February 19th at www.aacps.org/blueprint public engagement. Not at all. And I practiced. As another reminder, we released 2 potential redistricting scenarios for the northern parts of the county last week. I want to stress that these are potential scenarios. They are not recommendations or options. The timeline we have put forth provides for months of input from everyone in our county. Our webpage, here we go again, www.aacps.org/redistricting allows everyone to see the potential scenarios and how they may be impacted. As of yesterday, there had been more than 45,600 page views and nearly 14,000 addresses searched on the page. As per the timeline we have publicly set forth, we are accepting comments through May 31st, 2023. Dr. Bedell will deliver his recommendation to the board in July, and the board will offer more opportunities for public comment before adopting a plan in November of 2023 that will go into effect in the fall of 2024. Phase 2 of this process, comprising the central and southern portions of the county, will begin in February of 2025 with an implementation date of the fall of 2026. Next, transportation. As to the latest updates on our transportation numbers, as of today, we have 43 bus driver vacancies, the lowest number of the year, and 56 potential drivers in training. This morning's number of down routes was 14, also one of the lowest in the year. We are continuing our work to build a driver bench to work to relieve ongoing overcrowding issues. And finally, I want to inform the board and the public that more than 150 AACPS educators from elementary, middle, and high school levels recently spent a Saturday at our ASP Summit, designed to provide professional development on incorporating play and creativity into classroom instruction, understanding why and how to weave joy and rigor into learning for all students, and how to successfully meet the needs of students in advanced AP and IB classes. The feedback from the summit was incredibly positive, and we are appreciative of all who planned and attended this event. Madam President, that concludes my remarks. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, as always, Ms. Jackson. Much appreciated and very impressive on reading most of those websites. So, okay, that brings us to Section 5, consent items, award of contracts.
Let's bundle those, please. Motion to bundle.
Do we have consensus to bundle it? Do we have to vote? I can never remember if we vote to bundle. We can do it, consensus. Okay. Okay, I do have one question about item 5.02, consulting services curriculum audit. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Apologies.
No problem. President Tobin, the superintendent, recommends approval of the awards of contracts numbered 5.01 through 5.04 on today's agenda.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I have a question. Hello, Mr. Stansky. So
That's fine. I'm getting used to it.
Yeah.
It's my normal spot.
yeah, you just can't sit next to that.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. So I just had I hope a quick question. I noted in these contracts that it specifies the audit will cover grades 3 and up. And I was just curious because I have had a couple of questions from the public about where that leaves earlier grades, pre-K, K, et cetera. So if you could illuminate that.
Sure. Yep. For the record, Matt Stansky, Acting Chief Operating Officer. Yeah. So we really focused on the tested grades in the curriculum audit, as Dr. Bedell has alluded to in his 100-day plan and through the listening and learning tours, that curriculum was going to be a focus in reviewing that. And so we understood that we needed to do it and needed to do it in an aggressive way. So we focused on the tested areas because we are doing sort of a separate but simultaneous process in our earlier grades through our work with Maryland Leads and the focus on the science of reading. We have set aside millions of dollars in our ESSER grants for training in the science of reading, for curriculum reviews. And then obviously through Maryland Leads, we've reapplied for the funding for that, the science of reading portion. And so given all that, we felt it would have been a duplication of effort to focus on using the curriculum audit to focus on the earlier grades when we already have a separate process that is doing that.
Okay, that was what I suspected, but thank you for that response. And that's very helpful. Much appreciated.
Yep.
Thank you. So that's it for my questions. Any other questions? I see no lights. All right.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
Ms. Dent, Dr. Tobin.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Okay, this brings us to our action items. Item 6.01, administrative personnel appointments. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. President Tobin, the superintendent recommends that the persons on the exhibit in front of you be promoted or appointed.
So moved.
Okay, seeing no lights.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis, Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
Ms. Dent, Dr. Tobin.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item 6.02, items of legislation. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tobin. At this time, we do not have a recommendation, but we have our staff here to provide any support or answers that you may need.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Bedell, Ms. Jackson, President Tobin, and members of the board. For the record, Grace Wilson, Legislative and Policy Specialist, here today to discuss the items of legislation exhibit. There are 25 bills in the exhibit before you. No bills require the board to adopt a formal position, and with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. I see no lights. Now I see a light. Ms. Ellis.
I'm not going to make a motion tonight to change our position, but I just want to highlight, which one is it? House Bill 292, child care providers, registration and licensing exemptions, similar to one that I did bring a motion for. We certainly want to expand the opportunity for pre-K providers to be able to serve students in our school system. And we do have many students who do serve, or live on base and attend schools on base. And it would seem perfectly reasonable to change the law so that they can follow the federal guidelines and not have to meet Maryland mandates. So I'm only highlighting it and bringing up the point because I don't know if I would like to take it on and, make a stronger statement about it, but it does seem like it would be reasonable for us to take a position on that.
The reason I recommended no position is because, as you pointed out, the reason this bill was put forth is because the federal and state licensing and regulatory requirements for these types of businesses are duplicative. So while it does remove one set, for the most part, the standards and so forth that they have to meet are still the same.
Okay. So you're suggesting that the bill won't really have any effect.
There's not really a change on anything that these providers have to do. They just don't have to apply to do it in two places.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm still all about loosening those requirements, but thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
I see no further lights. So do you have anything additional, Ms. Wilson?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so we now come to a policy rescission. First reading, item 6.03, financial management priority objectives.
Although we have no recommendation, we do have staff, Ms. Wilson, here to answer any questions or provide any explanation you may need.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. For the record, Grace Wilson, Legislative and Policy Specialist, Policy 400.01 DAA, Financial Management Priority Objectives, is before the board on first reading for rescission. This policy was most recently updated in 1989 and was replaced by the adoption of Policy DA, Financial Management Goals, in 2017. However, the policy was not properly rescinded at that time. As a friendly reminder, the process for rescinding policy is the same as adopting it. However, a third reading is not necessary. Accordingly, the board may move to rescind the policy on March 22nd after the 30-day public comment period. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Ms. Corkadell.
So how will, where in policy would similar provisions be existing in the absence of this legislation?
Policy DA. So Policy DA was promulgated in 2017. It actually provided for the rescission of this policy. However, this policy was not brought to the board for a formal rescission. So I'm doing that now.
Cleanup bill. Okay. Okay. So then we
already
you're
have an
recommending
existing.
make a motion on the timeline. Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, I see no further lights. So I think that brings us to item 6.04, distribution of non-school communications, code KA.
Policy KA, distribution of non-school communications, is before the board on first reading. This policy was last revised in 2013 and establishes criteria for displaying and distributing printed informational materials and announcements in schools, whether to be sent home with students or displayed in the school. The policy is being amended to bring it into alignment with current event procedures, to clarify circumstances under which materials may be displayed or distributed by schools, and to make the distribution approval process more efficient. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Silkworth.
Thank you. So under C, position, it lists the organizations who can display or have displayed printed materials. Under 2, it's display of printed materials provided by others. And then it says that other organizations and businesses shall be permitted to display and so forth. I'm thinking about this from the standpoint of as a teacher. I think it talks about admin will determine where that takes place, like bulletin board.
Correct.
Is the same true under item 2 for other organizations and businesses?
Correct. They can display informational materials and announcements on tables, racks, bulletin boards, or similar areas, and our regulation has some additional language that says that the school
So
administrators
does
can.
that mean that as a teacher, someone or an admin could tell me that I need to have in a bulletin board in my classroom, have these displayed, or is this just like bulletin boards that may be out in the hallways?
This is more like a rack that's displayed for your dance studios and things like that, where they may drop off materials that the school may display. However, you'll see in C1, AACPS is one of those organizations that can
Correct.
distribute directly to students.
Now, I'm just wondering if in one school, it does say bulletin boards, and does it not?
It does, or similar areas.
But I'm thinking about the location of the bulletin boards. There could be a bulletin board right in the main lobby of the school, and someone could say to a business, well, so you can display there, but another school might say, well, no, you'd have to use this bulletin board, which is way away from the main entrance or whatever. So I'm just wondering if there is this open to some inequality in terms of the displaying?
I'm going to allow Mr. Mosier to answer that question since he oversees the application of this policy.
For the record, Bob Mosier, Chief Communications Officer. So, Mr. Silkworth, the intent of this policy and regulation is to provide a common area through which organizations can communicate materials to students. I don't know of a single school that has a bulletin board that has this, but the genesis of this policy was that, quite frankly, our school offices had become the post office for the entire community, right? And it just became a huge workload issue on secretaries and distributing stuff. And so that's why we went about cleaning it up in 2013.
So this is a good way to improve communication.
Correct.
I'm all for that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Corkadell?
Thanks. I agree. We do want to make sure we are clear and evident about it, and a lot of good. I am curious why the subsection B in C2 is being proposed to be struck.
So we actually moved that subsection to DA.
There is no DA.
In the regulation.
In the
I believe.
regulation. Yeah, in the regulation. We took it out of the policy and put it in the regulation.
Could we get a copy of the proposed
Absolutely.
regulation? Because it was not attached to the
I'll
best of my
I'll send it
knowledge.
to you. Yeah, we'll send it to you. I didn't know that
Okay.
it wasn't attached.
All
My
right. Well,
apologies.
now let me think then. Oh, yeah. Okay. Then I just have one more other quick question. I'll strike the others because that answers a lot. So in so much as the organizations, I'm losing my train of thought here. Hold on. For organizations and businesses, does that include recruiters, for example, for colleges and universities, military? I mean, military is probably covered under the federal agencies and departments, but things of that nature, is that considered businesses?
In general, no, because in section 2A of your policy, it says other Anne Arundel organizations and businesses. So I'm going to just pick a college, right? West Virginia University is not an Anne Arundel organization or a business.
Correct. But if
Anne Arundel Community College, well, that's probably not a good example because it's a governmental agency. But
I guess my bigger question is that going to limit, if a school is doing a fair or like a college or career fair and there's those activities and those organizations going on, is that going to limit how they interact at all?
so, I mean, typically the tables or racks in the common areas have been limited to businesses. The conversations I've had with principals, I don't think there's any traffic from colleges and universities. Those are reserved for college fairs and those career nights, those type of things.
Okay. No, I was just getting clarification because they didn't seem to match where the language of the definition was. But then, for example, some of our faith-based partners, though, that are working with our prevention programs and some of our other things, they're fine in those
Absolutely.
definitions. Just
Absolutely.
wanted to verify. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Ms. Frank?
Okay, I didn't have questions and now I do. Well, once you started asking, I was like, okay. So, but this does not, Ms. Wilson, this does not preclude, let's say Bodkin has an environmental fair and they want to bring out certain organizations. That doesn't preclude them from messaging, bringing their own brochures, that kind of thing. This is just what we display at, in the middle of the office at the schools at all time kind of thing. This is not a precluding policy. It's just this is what we are required to do within the schools kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. This is the distribution that is done in our schools by our school staff.
Okay, just checking. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think that concludes our questions. So we'll see that back on
The 22nd.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wilson and Mr. Mosher.
And you all can find out who had to answer what upstairs later. Okay, that brings us to other action items. Item 6.05, filling of vacancies on Executive Committee of Countywide Citizen Advisory Committee. Mr. Silver.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the named individual on the attached sheet be recommended to fill the existing vacancy on the Countywide Citizen Advisory Committee.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Seeing no lights, Ms. Howe.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schulheim,
Aye.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item 6.06, Superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2024 capital budget and 6-year plan. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you, President Tobin. The superintendent recommends approval of the fiscal year 2024 capital budget and 6-year plan and any approved adjustments.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Corkadell.
I want to thank you guys once again. And I just want to make sure that the community of Southern High School, just one more time, it hears that we are working with our state partners on the turf field, and it not being included in our capital budget does not mean it's not going to be part of the program should it get funded by the state and county, correct?
Yep, yeah, correct. For the record, Matt Stansky, Acting Chief Operating Officer.
Kyle Ruff, Director of Facilities.
Right, so smaller projects like turf fields go through a process called the bond bills in the legislative session. We have submitted the bond bill fact sheet to both delegate and senator in the respective in those respective districts. There will be hearings on all bond bill requests, and it's a top priority, obviously, for the administration. And so we'll be testifying in support of that bill, and hopefully it gets funded. And if it does, we'll include it in the capital budget, and pretty soon Southern High School will have another turf field.
Absolutely. And if the state legislature has to seek outside of bond funding through the general budget, I heard that is not off the table at this time until, in other words, we're not going to know until we know.
Right.
And that in that scenario, would we need to submit any amendments to our budget to the county, or is it treated the same as the bond?
It would still be treated the same as bond, whatever the source from state government is to fund the project, it'll still come through to us as capital dollars.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so very much. And I look forward to keep the faith, keep the faith. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I see no further lights. Ms. Howell.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schulheim,
Aye.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item 6.07, Superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2024 operating budget. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends approval of the fiscal year 2024 operating budget and any approved adjustments.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Silkworth. Oh, we have a presentation. Sorry. Apology.
Yep. They have it.
Yep.
Perfect. All right.
I got over my skis.
Gotcha. No problem. So just wanted to kind of give an overview of, last time came before you to discuss in detail the budget was January 17th during the board's work session. And since then, Governor Moore was sworn in and introduced his budget on January the 20th. So when he did that on that Friday, the team did a scrupulous review of what was in the budget, and what is before you today is now based on, as of today, what has been proposed by the governor. So some preliminarily good news, which is if you see on the chart that we were projecting a $49.9 million increase from state government. We are now looking at, for the moment, $60.9 million increase in state government. And that's really two primary areas. The first is compensatory education, which is funding derived from our free and reduced price meal counts. Those went up not only in Anne Arundel County Public Schools, but around the state, and really directly related to one, a rebound from the pandemic, folks getting used to filling out the forms again. But more importantly, Maryland participated in a Medicaid direct certification pilot program where the Department of Health sent us a file of students whose families were on Medicaid eligible that were then able to be directly certified for free and reduced price meals. And so that process yielded close to 10,000 additional students that qualified. Really got us in the middle and high schools where traditionally we saw drop-offs in families filling out the forms to be able to participate. And so it ultimately for Anne Arundel County, we saw over a 50% increase in our numbers. Statewide, we saw a 35% increase. And so given all that, our numbers did go up significantly higher than what we were projecting. The other area is preliminarily, our wealth per student grew at a smaller pace than the state average. And so we were able to then acquire some additional state aid in the foundation area because of that. I will say, I'm going to capture that with a caveat, which is the state is reviewing those numbers. There was talk that the comptroller in November there were some income tax returns that they processed late. And so we're not captured in the total net taxable income number. That will tend to affect the wealthier counties who tend to have the late filers more than other jurisdictions. So we are sort of on that other side, but not to the extent of a Montgomery or Howard County. But so we're anxiously awaiting the revised numbers. So this number may go down slightly when the budget is ultimately struck in late March. But for the time being, since we are adopting tonight, we need to go with what is currently in the governor's budget. So typically what we do for this process is if the state number is higher than what we were anticipating, we typically do a dollar for dollar match. So we reduce our county ask. So you can see that our original county ask was 86.3 million. We are now proposing tonight a county ask of an increase of 74.4 million, right? So it does reduce the county ask dollar for dollar. There were some also, it should be important to note, you see the highlights here on the bottom, these 3 blueprint programs. These 3 also changed our concentration of poverty estimate, went down slightly from 4.8 to 4 million. We did see a small uptick in college and career readiness and a decrease in our transitional supplemental instruction. And again, it's when we propose to the board, it's in December. We don't have the state numbers. Our numbers are tied to the other 23 jurisdictions and how their enrollments are, how their wealth is calculated. So, I think the team and I do a good job of estimating, but sometimes, there's slight changes. And so, we always reflect those changes here in front of the board in February. And so with that all in, though, we're still looking at a $1.67 billion request, which is about $149.1 million over prior year. So with that, Madam President, happy to answer any questions you or the board may have.
Ms. Ellis?
Thank you. So that certainly does appear to be good news as far as what we were expecting. But if I am correct, I think we're still off by about 24 million from what the county has indicated may be available.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
I'm
Right. So last year we received 50 million over last year. And that was a record year, right?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, right now our ask is 74.4.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. See no additional lights. Mr. Silver?
Okay, so this year we have 2 amendments, board amendments. I'm going to read amendment number 1. Reduce the program enhancement for 12 additional assistant principals by 1 FTE at $121,800 to the Board of Education budget to create a 1.0 FTE constituent services position to serve as the primary liaison between the Board of Education members and the community in order to help residents access appropriate AACPS and associated county and state education related services. The impact increases fiscal year 2024 operating budget recommendation by $96,485 in the administration category, reduces $115,045 in the mid-level administration category, reduces $300 in the instructional textbooks and supplies category, reduces $300 in the other instructional cost category, increases $600 in the operation of plant category, reduces $3,540 in the fixed charges category for a net effect savings of $22,100.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. And Ms. Ellis, your light is on.
Thank you. I know it's been presented to the public what amendments are being proposed this evening. There are only two, which is yay to the board. Big improvement from prior years, and it also shows that we largely come together over what has been proposed by our superintendent. So I'm very heartened by that. But as we consider tonight's amendments to the superintendent's recommendations for the board's operating budget, we have a responsibility to do what is in the best interest of our students. It is not our place to sit here and make statements with our votes, but to take action that will truly make our school system the best it can be for our students. We have to be realistic about the fact that there will be cuts from the proposed budget before us, as the county has to balance multiple priorities from multiple county agencies. Though we are hopeful that the county will fund a majority of what we pass on to them this evening. This budget is very focused on the priorities this board discussed in a meeting in October, with just a couple of exceptions. This does not mean that there is not value in every dollar proposed, but knowing that there's only so much funding available, we should stay true to those priorities that we agreed upon previously. We do not want to put the responsibility on the county to determine what the priorities are for our students. Assistant principals serve a critical role in our schools. Whichever schools receive these additional assistant principals, depending on how many make it through the county budget process, there will be additional resources in those schools to assist with the many needs of our students during the school day. We do, however, need to recognize the realities of local funding. We cannot add to the bottom line of an already large budget proposal as focused and appropriate as the proposal is. So why trade an assistant principal position for a constituent services position? Because I feel the responsibility to avoid adding to the bottom line, as I mentioned, of an already large budget request. But a constituent liaison will serve the entire AACPS community in a way that is sorely needed and long overdue. This liaison will bring equity by providing greater access to those who have not had a voice. This position is not to bloat central office or to serve at the whim of board members. This position is for the community. There are countless matters that are brought to the board as elected representatives of that community that we are unable to address directly with our constituents due to constraints in purview between the board and the superintendent and our quasi-judicial duties. Every member of the school system deserves equal access, and for many, that means a representative to help them navigate this massive system so that every student gets an equal opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Dent.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. So the amendment that's been brought before us has had me thinking for quite some time. And that's probably dangerous because I actually spend time, trying to look into what are we trying to get to. So I agree with you on the constituency services. So everyone knows that I'm new to the board and I do not spend a lot of time talking unless it's necessary to talk. Constituency services is probably the most important position that any elected position and any elected official has because it actually reaches out to the community. I spend 3 to 4 hours trying to do my own constituency services a day, not a night, not a week, a day. And I still don't get to the individuals that reaches out to me. I am sitting on the dais as we speak, trying to reply back to someone who is beating me up about something I didn't get back to them about. And I'm saying all this to say that this position is not only important, it's critical. I don't know how you all have made it this far, but I do know that it's very pressing for me that we consider this position and consider it wholeheartedly. And I say that to you all on the dais, as well as to the county execs and the Pittman administration, and to our county council that is going to ultimately have a decision making in this, because this is not something that we're asking that is egregious. It's not something that is unnecessary. It's something that is critical to us moving forward. And I suspect that with the blueprint, Maryland blueprint for coming up in the next year, I think that the constituency services is going to be even more critical. And I say all that to say that, however, I will make a motion, amend the motion at a time as we finish the discussion, because I don't want to trade APs for the position, because I don't think we should have to have a quid pro quo. I don't think we should have to trade something as critical as the APs for a position as constituent services, because it goes back to what you said in your initial comments, is that yes, we don't want to add the bottom line to the budget, but we also don't want to take away from critical positions that we know that needs to be inside our school system. So with that, I'll stop talking and I'll yield my comments to when appropriate time to make the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dent. I think I have the order right here. I think it's Ms. Frank, then Ms. Schalheim, then Mr. McGrath, then Ms. Corkadell. So Ms. Frank.
Thank you. I absolutely support the constituent services position. Every elected official in the county and the county has a constituent services liaison or aide or a legislative aide. And our county administration has multiple constituent services because it is important. One thing that I want to make sure that the public is aware of is if somebody comes to me and has a very specific student concern, there is a point where I may call them and speak to them and try to help them make sure they have the correct paperwork, especially if it's an evening and I know that they're not going to get that information until the next day and their student's already in school. And a specific concern like this happened this week where it was emergent that I at least make sure that they understood the process. But there was a point when it got into a specific concern that I had to say, I am no longer able to discuss this with you because this could become something that comes before the board as an adjudication. So as much as I wanted to help that person, and I was the person, who is ready, able, and willing to do it, because of that role in our quasi-judicial role, I had to tell this person, I am not able to help you. Please contact XYZ. And that is extremely difficult. People on this board are here because they want to help people. And I want to make sure that I can oversee as much as possible, but there are lines that I cannot cross. So this would be a direct report to the board so that we can ensure that our employee, it would become our employee, is monitoring cases that are brought to the board and are working through liaison issues that are brought to the board specifically. Our staff does do a tremendous job, and I do have to thank, whenever I ask the staff to take over concerns like this, Ms. Jackson, you are among some of the most responsive, and you guys are amazing with that. But there is a special niche for someone who reports to us. Along with that, I do want to point out, I would support an amendment because I agree with what Ms. Dent is saying, that if we have support and we need to get this done, and we have support by adding to the budget and not taking away, I would support that. However, I would say, I also want to make it clear that when we say that we want to reduce to 11 APs, we are not cutting our existing budget. We are instead asking for 11 APs instead of 12. And it's the ask over what we already have at this point. So I think that's a really important point. I agree with the motion as it stands, but I would support an amendment as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Frank. Ms. Scholheim.
I'm here for the students. I ran for the students. I serve for the students. I'm against any motion that takes away from school-based staff to meet students' needs at the school level. And I have not had a need for an extra set of hands whilst on the board. Our fantastic staff, Diane Howe and Jackie Money, have been able to direct people in the appropriate direction when it comes to folks that come to me with things I can't handle, shouldn't get involved with, because it could come before us as an appeal. I've been sitting here for over 4 years now. And so I remain, as I was last year, opposed to an ombudsman, whether it's on this amendment or any other to put this on. Y'all, it's going to hit the cutting room floor at the county council. I mean, read the room. So I'm not going to be supportive of it, and I'm not supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGrath.
Thank you, Dr. Tobin. I would just like to say that I will be supporting Ms. Dent's amendment here, and I feel that the position of being a board member is evolving, and like every position, we need to evolve with that. We are representing, personally, I represent 86,000 students. I don't think it's feasible with me in school, with me having a job outside of school and then serving on this board, which is a great privilege. I don't think it's fair to the people I represent for us not to have as many resources. It's creating an equity gap, to be honest, because while some members of the board may have the ability to be a constant advocate for their constituents, for other members of the board who may work 1-2 jobs, it's creating an equity gap. And we don't need to act as the cutting room floor. We need to create a budget that we genuinely think will give the best experience to our students in our community. And personally, I feel we shouldn't be thinking about this from a cutting room, a deficit lens. We should be thinking about this as how are we going to move our school system forward to be a positive, better school system. And I think this is one step we can do to make our school system more positive. And I'm against, like other board members have said, from reducing the amount of APs in schools. That's why I support dividing the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you, President Tobin. So I served in constituent services with the county for 4 years, appointed. And although the issues were different, the sentiment is still the same. Constituent service members at the local level are there to establish relationships with the communities to make sure that the community's needs are met. When we have times of crisis, that is when their role really plays a critical part in our system. And I'm not going to reiterate the sentiments of my fellow members, Ms. Dent, Ms. Frank, and Mr. McGrath, because I do concur with them. But I would just like to add a couple little perspectives here. Number one is constituent services is not about just answering emails. However, when I can think of multiple moments within the last couple years and within the last year, as a matter of fact, where not every board member was able to personally respond to emails, and on this dais reported, "So sad, so sorry, you are getting an out of office reply." And then, trust me, I want everybody to trust every single one of us, but those people deserved to have a personal response back. And when you look at the county council, which is similarly with 7 districts, I also want to point out they have 3 administrative personnel who are just handling what Ms. Howe and Ms. Money have. They do not have quasi-judicial. They do not deal with appeals. They do not deal in our quasi-executive functions as well. They also have each, the taxpayers are paying for each, higher paid than the county executive's constituent services, each an individual legislative aide. And they sometimes find themselves struggling to keep up. Education represents over half of the county's budget and over half of the county's focus. Our students are important enough. Our staff is important enough to expect I'm hearing, I am listening to you. And unfortunately, we have not been able to fulfill those needs. On top of that, our amount of hours and workload and duties as assigned by the state of Maryland does exceed what all of the other elected officials have. We sit here getting paid, I think the president gets paid 2 digits. We get paid 1. As a matter of fact, the Police Accountability Board gets paid more than these people up here that are making huge decisions for your students. And although we do so very willingly, signed up to do so willingly, there is a natural breaking point as to reasonable and rational expectations. And so lastly, that brings me to the final. In a little over 18 months, you could very well be seeing 8 new faces here. And those 8 new faces will not be able to carry on a relationship that the constituent service position could have provided. My big disappointment last year was in that, so we had that opportunity to get them acclimated so that our transition to a new school board, which will start to happen every 4 years, starting in November of 2024, when you will, and thusly oath taken in December. So I just want to say that honestly, this should not be something that is, are we worthy of it? Do we do a good enough job to have earned an assistant? You will see program enhancements in here all over the place for registrars and others meeting the needs. I do not believe that presupposing anything that the council does or does not do is our place. And I want to make it clear that this board member does not share the sentiments of her other board members in that regard. I do respect the independence and the hard work that they are going to undertake and that their decisions render. And so I do want them to consider this because it also affects how well they are able to respond to their constituents. I would not agree to put one position to the other. I do understand creating the balance there, but I have advocated since my very first year for additional APs, as well as some other positions, and that would be a contradiction. So I will be supporting Ms. Dent's planned amendment at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Mr. Silkworth.
Thank you, President Tobin. So I simply cannot support the amendment 1 as written because we're taking in one position away from one school that Dr. Bedell is asking for 12. And so there'll be a school out there, 400 or 500 children that will not have access to that. That's very inequitable. So as it is right now, I can't support it. I will be a good listener with the amendment that I know is approaching. I have to say that Mr. McGrath's comments were spot on. Ms. Corkadell, when she made the comment about our funding authority, will it be funded? I kind of do my homework. I would suggest that in the current form, the amendment, if that were to stay in the current form, that would not be funded. But I represent all students, just as was noted by Mr. McGrath. And I think about my workload. Workload, that's been something on teachers' minds for so long. There's so many out there that are struggling with that workload issue. I will tell you that I personally am not struggling with that, but this is a diverse board. My situation may not necessarily be anywhere near what someone else's situation is. I will tell you, I want everyone out there listening to know, for me and for most of my colleagues, this is a full-time position and more. I spend a lot more than 40 hours a week and on weekends and nights. But I ran for this. I ran for the kids. The question becomes, will a constituency service position help our kids? And the answer to that is it absolutely will, at least in the areas that I've taught and many of the areas that I know. There are many families who just don't know how to navigate and get the resources that they need. So having said that, I am looking forward to hearing the amendment.
So I would like to add a couple of comments, if I may. I think there's some important things to point out. Most of it's been covered by my colleagues. To Ms. Corkadell's point about the fact that this board will turn over to one degree or another in 2024. Oh, and by the way, before I continue, if you're wondering about the 2 digits or whatever that I make, it's 10,000 compared to 9,000 for the vice president and 8,000 for esteemed colleagues. So yes, I do this for the money. But like my colleagues, I signed up for it. We all signed up for it. That's not the question. However, I think the issue of the board turning over is an issue of concern for me for the following reason. I want to make sure that we can have people running for this board in the future who can truly represent the entire community. And in order to do that, we cannot, and in my opinion, should not set up a situation which assumes that someone should be able not to have to work a full-time job in order to do this. That's not fair, not when people are paid what we are paid. The other thing I would suggest, we've received emails and people have said, well, why can't you have your wonderful staff, as has been noted, Ms. Howell and Ms. Money. That is the equivalent of telling the county council that the people who oversee their meetings should be doing their constituent services. That's not how it works. Or telling the state delegation that their chief of staff, who basically runs the business of the delegation, should also be doing constituent services. There's a reason we don't do that. It makes no sense. These are two different jobs. And we need to recognize there is, to my knowledge, absolutely no other elected body elected to represent constituents that has no constituent services position. And that demonstrates, in my view, a lack of appropriate respect for the importance of educational issues and the fact that this is what makes our future day in and day out. And has been, as has been noted, we fill all three in a quasi way. We fill all three elements of government. Like Mr. Silkworth, and regarding time, I think I spend more time with Mr. Silkworth than I do with my husband at this point. So I'm just, it's a good thing we like each other. But in any case, well, I shouldn't speak for you. But
We're good.
As Mr. Silkworth said, I can't support the amendment as it's currently written for all the reasons that have been cited. The need for APs is simply too important. But I do think that we have reached a point where this is something that's clearly a need, and if we are going to continue to do our work, we have to move forward with this. So I invite Ms. Dent, if you would like to propose your amendment to the amendment.
Madam President, I make a motion to amend the amendment to add $121,800 to the Board of Education's budget to create one FTE constituency service position to serve as the primary liaison between the Board of Education members and the community in order to help residents across Anne Arundel County's public school system and across the county and state education-related services, and to restore the increased FY 2024 operating budget recommendations by $96,485 in the administration category. Reduces the $115,045 in the mid-level administrative category. No, I'm sorry.
We won't reduce.
Stop there.
Stop there.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
You want to practice with Ms. Jackson? Yeah.
She can read the final version when we go to vote.
Yeah.
Strike the reduction.
And we'll just wait a second.
Yeah, we'll wait a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recess for 5?
Okay, we'll recess for 5 minutes. Thank you.
I have it.
Okay, we are back for the next episode. All right. So I believe we still had some discussion on the proposed amendment. So Ms. Ellis, I see your light.
Yes, maybe it would be helpful real quick to
Oh,
read
I'm
what
sorry.
the actual amendment to the
Yes,
motion
apologies.
is.
Once more, I got ahead of myself. Ms. Howell.
Sure. Ms. Dent moved to amend the prior motion to add $121,800 to the Board of Education budget to create one FTE constituent service position to serve as the primary liaison between the Board of Education members and the community in order to help residents access appropriate AACPS and associated county and state education related services.
Thank you, Ms. Howell. All right, Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. And I want to thank my colleagues for making some very important points. One being Ms. Frank's statement that this is the original motion that was made was not cutting our budget, but supports the addition of 11 assistant principals. I have no desire and would not take an assistant principal out of a school, but I have no doubt we could use 24 more assistant principals, but we have to be reasonable, and not adding to the bottom line was my rationale, as we are still $24 million over what the county has indicated is likely to be provided. I also want to thank my colleague, Mr. McGrath, for his statements. This board is strong when it is represented by people from all walks of life, and that means many of us must earn an income above our $8,000 or have other responsibilities. All of our students in every district deserve a dedicated advocate. And again, I'll reiterate, there's some things we simply cannot do for our constituents. That all being said, I certainly do support the amendment. It was simply my intention not to add to the bottom line for a position that this board has been very clear is a priority, and it is absolutely essential for our community. So I will be supporting the amendment.
Thank you. I see no additional lights, so Ms. Dent, you have the opportunity to say some further words if you wish before we take a vote.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone and for your time also. I know that this is something that we don't typically do, which is actually spend a lot of time on things that are very, very important while we're on the dais. But one of the things that I want everyone to be clear about is that the position that we are advocating for is not a position that is for the, I think one of my colleagues said to just read emails. It's actually for our constituents. It's for the people that communicate with us on a daily basis about things that are right, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent, that they need to be heard. As you heard Ms. Frank speak earlier about things that she does to help people on a daily basis, I'm pretty sure we can enumerate that across the board of all the things that we are trying to do. So I appreciate each and every one of you all taking time out to really give us some clear thought about supporting the motion. And I appreciate Ms. Ellis for your understanding that is not to derail any of the objectives of what we're trying to do to decrease the budget. I realize wholeheartedly that the 24 million, it's a little bit over what the county wants, but I'm hopeful. Just like the governor gave us additional bump ups, I'm pretty sure that the county will have additional funding that they will take a look at. So I want to be mindful and good stewards of the government's money, but I also want to understand that the needs of the people that we support and the students that we support should come first. And that's our top priority. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no further lights, Ms. Howell.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Ms. Frank.
Aye.
Ms. Ellis.
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell.
Aye.
Ms. Schalheim.
Nay.
Ms. Dent.
Aye.
Dr. Tobin.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-1.
Thank you. So we now have before us a motion that's been made and seconded, now amended, that we need to vote on. So I do not see any additional lights, so I think we can go ahead and vote. Yes, so would you read the motion as it now?
The motion is to add $121,800 to the Board of Education budget to create 1.0 FTE constituent services position to serve as the primary liaison between the Board of Education members and the community in order to help residents access appropriate AACPS and associated county, state education-related services.
Thank you. Ms. Howell.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Ms. Frank.
Aye.
Ms. Ellis.
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell.
Aye.
Ms. Schalheim.
Nay.
Ms. Dent.
Aye.
Dr. Tobin.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-1.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Silkworth, motion 2.
So we have motion 2 to reduce the program enhancement for, reduce the program enhancement for EEE in the Old Mill cluster. The impact reduces fiscal year 2024 operating budget recommendation by $611,032 in the instructional salaries and wages category, $158,600 in instructional textbooks and supplies category, $10,000 in other instructional cost category, $42,000 in the student transportation services category, $197,268 in the fixed charges category, and $1,300,000 in the capital outlay category, for a total of $2,318,900.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I believe the order is Ms. Schalheim, Ms. Ellis, Mr. McGrath, Mr. Silkworth, Ms. Dent, and Ms. Corkadell. Okay, I'll try to remind that. Ms. Schalheim.
Yeah, thank you. I think the Triple E program is amazing. I wish my daughter would have benefited from it in the Severna Park cluster. She and her peers in the Severna Park cluster are one of the many clusters that have yet to have that program implemented. And I am against any attempt to cut the budget in this way or to slow the already very slow implementation of this program to all clusters. We mentioned in the last motion that that's now been dealt with, that we don't want to, presuppose what the county council might do or the county executive might do. I think that this kind of does take away that decision-making process from them. And I also see it as an equity, real and perceived, for not just the teachers and their planning time that they will not have, but the opportunities that our students will miss out on if this program, which again exists in many clusters, but not Old Mill, they'll just never see those opportunities. So I'm against this motion, and I will not be supporting it, nor future motions to slow or deny the implementation of the Triple E program to the communities that don't already have it. Thank you.
Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. So no one is a bigger proponent than I am of project-based learning and the need for less structured activity that allows the brain to exercise uninhibited and therefore nurture and develop every student's creativity. I love the excitement for Triple E and the opportunities it provides to expand the mind and create meaningful experiences for our youngest learners. I also recognize the need to provide more opportunity for teacher planning time. That is why Triple E has been touted as a win-win for students and teachers. However, with new leadership, with a new vision, and a new era in education in Maryland, now is the time to reimagine elementary education. Experiential learning should not be a program benefiting students 1 hour per week, but a daily experience for every student in AACPS. And I mean every student beyond elementary school. We should be looking at how to provide these experiences in the classroom on a daily basis. Opportunities for students to use their creativity and imagination to problem solve uninhibited by standards and grading. Imagine after an hour of getting lost in a project, the students could continue their work if they aren't quite done yet. Imagine having these experiences with even less constraint. As we are hopefully moving to a new model for elementary instruction, we now have dozens of Triple E teachers. Sorry, my computer is glitching. We now have dozens of Triple E teachers who can be involved in curriculum development, PD, and mentoring as we begin a new model for elementary education. If we expand Triple E to one more cluster now, the inequity will remain, as there will still be clusters without this opportunity. Triple E will also not get us where we need to be in terms of meeting the blueprint expectations for teacher planning time. We need to look at other solutions, such as increasing recess time and time in the classroom to exercise the brain with self-directed exercises and projects that can be overseen by someone other than the classroom teacher, perhaps additional TAs. We should put a pause on expanding Triple E as we determine the way forward, factoring the results of the curriculum audit, the requirements and the intentions of the blueprint, and this transition to new leadership and the increased involvement of the school community. So let me be clear, if I wasn't already. I want every student to benefit from the project-based learning and all of the benefits of Triple E as a regular part of their classroom experience, not as a limited opportunity. To all of those who testified tonight and at the budget hearings in favor of Triple E, I am with you. I've been in the Triple E classroom, and I want these experiences for all students. Imagine if all that was described here tonight about how students grow and how it makes them feel is how students feel in the classroom every day. That is what we should expect. Thank you.
Mr. McGrath.
Thank you, Dr. Tobin. This conversation about Triple E reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend who was a teacher for almost 5 decades. And he was talking about a student he had who came out of the school system confused on what his purpose in life was. And that had a deep impact on me. I feel that Triple E is a great program. I went through the STEM program at Old Mill Middle School South, which incorporates similar ideas. And I feel like even though I am not looking for a STEM career, it did put me on the trajectory to have a purpose in life, which is public policy and working with the wonderful people on this board to improve education. And I feel that even though we may disagree on specific ways to implement the general idea, I don't think we should let Old Mill students pay the price for that. I genuinely believe that this is a great program. I feel like it is our duty as members of the Board of Education to ensure that every student has as many opportunities as humanly possible to develop their purpose in life, to develop their passions and develop their skills. And I could not just in good faith vote against Old Mill young people having that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Mr. Silkworth.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. I don't think I could have said it any better. So we have 8 of 13 clusters with Triple E. So we have 5 that do not have it. Old Mill is my district. But that doesn't matter that it's my district because I'm here for all of our kids. We need to get to the point at some point in time where we have 13 of 13 clusters that have a Triple E program. It is an amazing proven program based upon not just the testimony that we've heard tonight, but based upon what I've heard from so many of our teachers across the county for a long time. So I cannot support this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Silkworth. Ms. Frank.
I'm going to support this motion as well. And there were a couple of things that Ms. Ellis stated that I did agree with, and she said them probably more eloquently than I would have, so I appreciate that. The most compelling argument that I heard from Ms. Ellis, and we've had talks before tonight, and she has sort of explained to me what her concerns were. I do agree. And one of the more compelling pieces of this is that it started almost a decade ago, and the vision of this county has changed drastically in that time. The financial situation of this county has gone up and down several times in that time, and we are in a much different place. It was intended to be a slow rollout, system by system, cluster by cluster. I disagree that we're there at this point. At that time, there was no blueprint. It had not passed. We didn't have the same superintendent, and we didn't have an elected board. There are so many variables that have contributed to a vastly different situation in our school system. And I do agree that taking a moment to stop and really consider what this board's priorities are and this superintendent's implementation of this system should be. I think we're going to be doing that very soon when we get Dr. Bedell's strategic plan and we work through that. And I think that these types of decisions should be based off of where we want to move our county. So I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you, President Tobin. I just want to say, I think that I've never met a budget, first off, that could not withstand a little bit of leniency in its proposal. However, I want to just take a minute. I haven't spoken too much on EEE in past years, and that definitely is one of the problems with these multi-year agreements between our funders and programs, is that our ability to fully recognize its potential gets drowned out by 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. We just got around to finishing the kindergarten stuff. Do we still, I don't think we have any more open school classrooms, right? Have we concluded that, Mr. Stansky?
The open space.
Yeah. That's another one that took a long time.
Yes. If
And
we haven't
so-
completed it, we're like 99% there. But
Yeah, exactly. All that being said, when I first came on, myself and one of our former board members, Mr. Grannon, we toured some of the classrooms together. We took a look at it because I looked at that amount and I said, oh my goodness, like this is an expensive program. And then I found out more about it. And the more I learned about it, the more I grew to understand that it is not just about what is being taught and how it's being taught. It's also about how that school is able to operate, how that school is able to well manage the students and the students' education, and provide supports that may be unanticipated based on enrollment. And similarly, the outcomes that we've experienced from them have been very positive. But ultimately, I asked the magical question of staff earlier is how does this fit into the blueprint? Because you guys are correct. It went, this was in the making for many, many years prior to the blueprint even having discussions. And the information that was shared with me is, yes, it will allow us to fulfill some roles. Now, we have asked the county to simply just fund the remaining, and they have said no. At one point or another in the next several years, that is going to have to occur. This is a step in the right direction, and I think every cluster that receives this is now a cluster's number of students who we will reap the benefits for many years to come. The inequity of it not existing everywhere, yes, that is real. But that should not mean that we simply dismantle, halt, or otherwise. Rather, we need to advocate. That's our job to do. And our job is to advocate for all the remaining clusters. And so the superintendent, in my opinion, has proposed a reasonable, rational approach, which is to follow what was agreed upon many years ago when EEE was launched. And that was 1 to 2 clusters per year as revenues supported it. I continue to advocate for this program and will continue to do so. I wish there would have been other opportunities that perhaps members, if time had permitted, to propose to maybe make us a little leaner in some of our other areas. I did not see any, but I'm always welcome to them. I will be a no today, but it is not from not recognizing what the true intent of my colleagues are. And I will be voting to press forward with the superintendent's recommendation on this.
Thank you, Ms. Corkadell. Ms. Dent.
Wouldn't it be great if school was fun? I hear that all the
It
time.
was in my class.
You're not biased. I say that in understanding that I love coming into preschool, elementary school, and watching just the innovative minds and really how genius the kids are that are really just trying to figure out how to navigate whatever that thing is that they've gotten in front of them. I don't think that there's a way to cut this program. I think we need to figure out a way to increase the funding for this program. And I do think that by cutting it, we're not really sending the right message. The program should not be 8 of 13. It should be 13 of 13. But I also agree with Mr. McGrath on don't take away an opportunity for someone to enjoy what it is that they're doing, or find a way for them to navigate what may be the only hour they may have of freeing their minds from the stress that goes on. And I believe you me when I tell you children are stressed. I'm stressed for watching them have to navigate this world. And I say every single day to my nieces and my nephews that enjoy school, enjoy school. And then they say, I don't like school. How do you not like school? And I tell you that programs like this put the energy back into children and make them want to go to school. So I agree that this program needs to be for everyone. I do agree that all means all. And I can't see a world where even with the administration would not want to support expanding the program to the other schools that don't have it. I just don't understand how this program is not funded. So I can't support the motion, but I do agree that we need to figure out a way to where we can make sure that not only is the motion to support it, that it's not a choice to end this program, but is to find a way to be innovative in our education system with our elementary students, so where it encompasses enhancing excellence in our elementary schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dent. I'd just like to add a couple of comments. I think it's important to note, and Ms. Corkadell mentioned the fact that staff indicated to us that the structure of EEE will help us meet some of the requirements of Blueprint going forward. But I think there's more to it than that. I've said often, even though Blueprint does not explicitly address certain kinds of pedagogy, it does in many ways promote exactly what EEE is doing. And I think one of the things to remember, we heard testimony tonight from a number of teachers. This helps teachers learn to be better teachers in an area that is absolutely critical going forward. Project-based learning is where we're headed. I agree with Ms. Ellis. This is what all our students should be exposed to. I believe they will be ultimately. And I trust the superintendent and his staff as things evolve to maybe change the parameters. It may be that it's not just an hour every few days. It may be lots of things change. But for where we are right now, this is a critical opportunity for our students and our teachers. And so I do feel we can't keep denying certain clusters this opportunity. We need our students to have access to this, and we need our teachers to have access to this. It will be better for all of us moving forward. And so I do support continuing to fund EEE and hopefully be able to expand it to the rest of the clusters that don't have it. And so I will not be able to support this amendment. So thank you. Okay, that concludes, Ms. Ellis, my apologies. You get to say a few more words.
Thank you. I hear us all agreeing on what elementary schools should be like, and that is the intention of this motion. I'm frankly disappointed to hear us tout a program that creates 1 hour per week of an experience as the solution to making fun or school fun and enriching. A vote for expanding EEE is going to be a vote against something else. And I guess we're going to let the county decide where that $2.3 million will come from once we pass our budget on to them. as far as fitting into the blueprint, it's been set up here on this dais, and I've seen Dr. Bedell agree and even talk to it, that the blueprint was intended to transform education, not add to it. We should not be looking at what are we not providing our students and therefore add something to the program, to the school week, as this is, not the school day, to sort of check off that box. The blueprint is not about checking off boxes. It is about transforming education. And I sincerely hope that this school system is going to move towards experiential learning on a regular basis in the classroom every day. That's what this is about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. All right, seeing no more lights, Ms. Howell.
Mr. Silkworth moved to remove the program enhancement for Triple E in the Old Mill cluster. Mr. McGrath.
Nay.
Mr. Silkworth.
Nay.
Ms. Frank.
Aye.
Ms. Ellis.
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell.
Nay.
Ms. Schalheim.
Nay.
Ms. Dent.
Nay.
Dr. Tobin.
Nay.
2-6, motion fails.
Okay, thank you. I believe, let me just explain to members. We have, I believe, no more amendments, or rather motions to amend the budget. There will need to be, do we need a recess now? No, we're okay. All right. So I'm going to offer each board member, I'll call in roll call order, the opportunity to say a few words before we, is that correct? I mean, I'm sorry, I lost track. I thought we would need to take a recess to.
We don't need to take a recess per staff. We just need to approve the superintendent's recommended budget as amended.
Got it. Okay. Okay, I know. So I'm going to go around and offer everybody a chance to say a few words before we take that vote. Okay. So I'll start in roll call order. Mr. McGrath?
I'm happy to be able to vote for a budget that prioritizes improving the school system, looking and realizing that my time on the board is short. They're starting the selection process already for the next mob. It has truly been an honor of my lifetime so far to serve on this Board of Education. And this budget process took a while, and I'm happy with the final product. And I just want to thank everyone for inviting me into this process and being able to represent the students.
Thank you. Mr. Silkworth?
Thank you, President Tobin. So there were many years when I was frustrated as a teacher and a TAC rep because the budgets were always based upon what someone said in terms of dollars might be given to the school system. And for so long, I continue to say our budgets have to be based upon the needs of our students, our schools, our staff, our communities. So last year's budget was, in my mind, a start. That was a historic budget. I also believe that this is another historic budget with only an amendment or two. So I would like to thank Dr. Bedell and his great team for putting together this budget, which I think is based on the needs of our kids and our communities. And, you know, we do have great students, teachers, staff, awesome families and schools. We hear so much, some focus on the negative, that gets in the press, but I want to focus on the positive, which builds foundations for the future of our students, families, and communities. I would like to thank Ms. Schalheim as the chair of the Budget Committee and all the members of the Budget Committee. I also would like to thank all of my colleagues. I just have to say, this is not the first time I've said it, I am very proud to serve on this board with all of my colleagues. So thank you.
Ms. Frank.
So we are about to vote on a $1.68 billion budget. And I have never voted to approve the budget before. I am going to shock myself and I'm going to end up supporting this budget tonight. And probably half the people in this room are very surprised to hear that. But I also wanted to state that it is, I do not take this lightly by any stretch of the imagination. That is a tremendous amount of money. And this is all paid for by people who live here in this county. And that is a tremendous burden. Being on one income right now, I understand that situations can vary and people are struggling. And I really hope that that this does not negatively impact our families who have to fund this. Having said that, I support Dr. Bedell. I think that he created a budget that is smart, that looked at some things that I had personally hoped to see in previous years when we made amendments that I didn't see in the final budgets. And at the end of the day, this board came together pretty closely and had a vision of what we wanted. And I think that we got very close to a consensus, which, I mean, I think we've come a very long way. So I'm very appreciative to my colleagues on the board. And I'm very appreciative to our superintendent. I think that while it is a great deal of money, I think that this is a solid budget and I will support it.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. We're all shocked, but thank you. I was going to say, yeah. Follow that, Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. So I believe every budget cycle, I have proposed cuts to the superintendent's recommended budget. We never get everything that we ask for in our budget. We never do. And I consider it our responsibility to decide what is most important. So now we're handing this over for other officials to make those decisions. So that's why every year I do struggle with voting for the budget. This year, it is less of a struggle. I do greatly, as I've said many times now, appreciate the work of Dr. Bedell and Mr. Stansky and all of the staff. But it's under Dr. Bedell's leadership that I truly believe this budget is very focused. And so while I still feel it is a little more than it should be, being realistic, not more than it should be, as if there's nothing in here that's not needed. But, well, again, if we could take EEE dollars and put them into a better elementary experience throughout the week, that would be great. But by and large, everything in this budget is very important. But I wish we could have done a little more to make those choices. That being said, I am pleased to support the budget this year.
Thank you. Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you. I think my colleagues have said at least several things that I would have otherwise said, so I'll skip it and strike it. But I do just want to maybe reiterate a point that was made when the original recommendation was made to us back in December, that you did not see any fluff, and that actually there are many positions that we do need that we traditionally ask for that we chose not to. Blueprint, in its transformation, is going to require a lot of resources at the local, at the state level, and it's a commitment. It's a commitment that the state of Maryland has made that we have an obligation to follow through with. So I got to say, sticker shock, definitely. I agree with Ms. Frank. This is a very meaty budget, but it is necessary. And while many of our colleagues across the state in other districts have put the additional things that we chose to hold back this year on, and because it is going to be an investment, and an investment is just that. I think overall, what we have presented is addressing some of even the common things. When we remove Blueprint, things like inflation, things that we are dealing and struggling with. A lot of these amounts are a result of inflation. Our labor costs go up. What we have to pay our talent and our professionals goes up when inflation does. Now it's restabilized back down to 6% from the 11% it was up at in its higher point. We were toggling at 8 when we saw the recommended budget of the superintendent. And you take a look at some of these increases, and it is not going to even cover that. So although it is a huge, heavy lift ask, I would just encourage our county funders, aka our county executive and our county council members, to consider that what we are presenting is what we truly feel is that minimum. And as we move forward in the coming years ahead, regardless of the economic challenges that we may be facing, we have an obligation to well educate these students. And I'm looking forward to putting education back as a core priority. I think we saw during our recent state of emergency that the students were not necessarily the priority of everyone. And so it was a struggle. So now education is back in the forefront, and it needs to stay there. This is our future. These are our students. This is the future of our community. And so I hope that our county funders will partner with us and our state funders as well, and ensure that we are able to deliver the innovation we talk about, the opportunities that we know are just sitting there waiting for us, and an impassioned staff that is willing to take their time out of their evening and their family to express how important educating our students are. So obviously I will be supporting the budget, but further, I will be advocating for it. All of it, each and every single piece, even the pieces that I was not necessarily comfortable with, or I did not agree should be in there. It's important for us to be united, and I look forward to working with all of our partners to hopefully get all of this budget funded. I think it's possible. We just have to decide as a community where education is in our personal priorities and where it needs to be for our students.
Thank you, Ms. Schulheim.
Yes, I am very proud to support this budget. Even the part I wasn't a fan of, the board took action, and so it's my duty to support that as well, and I will. And I will staunchly advocate, as I do every single year, for the full funding of our budget to benefit our kids. I want to thank Mr. Stansky, Ms. Camella, the entire budget team for their work that they do putting this together, and of course to Dr. Bedell for being just a breath of fresh air. Okay. Know that I would stand if my mic were taller. So yes, definitely a standing ovation all around. I do want to take a moment of personal privilege and address one item that we heard a lot in the hearings that we did not address today. I just think we need to talk about the elephant in the room, so I'm going to do that. So just bear with me. So I would like to address the issue of the current stipend ineligible NBCT Unit 1 employees. I just know that to all of you out there, I understand your frustration and your anger over this issue. While I know that other school systems have addressed this issue, please know that the job description and actual job functions of these employees and other systems align with the definition of teacher in these other jurisdictions. And according to the MSDE criteria sent to all LEAs in April of 2022, a teacher is defined as a certified public school employee who is primarily responsible and accountable for teaching students in the class. Teacher, according again to the criteria that MSDE sent, does not include curriculum specialists, instructional aides, attendance personnel, psychologists, social workers, clerical personnel, and individuals with a resident teacher certificate or an individual with a certification for career professionals. Primarily responsible and accountable is a phrase that is defined as a teacher of record or co-teacher, such as a special educator or an ESOL teacher who delivers instruction and is responsible for the students or group of students' academic progress in a pre-K to 12 public school setting. Again, according to the MSDE criteria, teachers must teach in the manner identified in their definitions I just referenced at least 60% of their working time during the course of a school year, or if the teacher fills the role of a teacher and of a leader and teach in the manner I just described at least 50% of their working time. The non-teaching duties of this person would include being responsible for mentoring peers and serving as an expert resource on content and pedagogy to serve as a professional developer or mentor teacher. So at this point, the job descriptions and job functions of currently stipend ineligible NBCT Unit 1 employees don't align with the definition of a teacher according to state law. And I implore the Maryland General Assembly, all of those listening to this meeting or will listen to this meeting on YouTube and in coming days, to address this issue now and close this loophole. These school counselors, literacy teachers, teacher specialists, resource teachers, and others are critical to the successful student academic outcomes. And in my opinion, this inequity will only hurt our students in the end, as this poses a real employee retention issue. And so I say again, this must be fixed by the state. We cannot wait on this. And I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schellheim. Ms. Dent.
Thank you. So the budget for me is interestingly enough, not enough. I know everybody talks about the budget being the most important thing that we'll do here. I echo that because I used to vote on this thing or used to advocate for this little thing called the National Defense Authorization Act. And we wanted our military to be excellent, and it is. It's the most lethal military there is in the free world, and I'm proud to be a part of it, and I'm proud to have advocated for that budget every single year, and it didn't bother me that it kept going up and up and up, because you know what? I knew what it produced. And I'm saying the same thing. Our students, their education is not anything that we want to keep on saying that we need more, but we want to do it with less. It's not possible. Education is expensive. Education is expensive. But you know what else is expensive? Not having education. It costs us more and more and more when we do not get the resources that we need in the classroom, because we start to try to find other programs to educate our children. And that's not where it should come from. I know several layers have got to happen with this budget. I know that Mr. Stansky is going to go in and tweak everything that he's got to do in order for us to try to get as close as we can to this 24 million. But I wouldn't, because I want the other 24 million. Because if we didn't want it, I wouldn't have asked for it. If we didn't want it, I would not say that we need it. We do need it. Every single night, we have people standing that we're here about a raise, about a need, about things that they can't get. So I think that the budget is reasonable. I think the budget is as solid as it can get. I think we are all here being good steward as we can of the money that is put before us. But we're not asking for something that we don't need. And we're not asking for it so we know you're going to cut it. It's not the game that we play. It is a serious need. And it's a need for us to make sure that Anne Arundel County has the excellence in education that we're desiring. We've looked at where we are. We know where we are. We know how we stand up against the counties that are around us. We know where it's at. We know what their budgets look like. But we, more than anything, we know our commitment and our obligations to the excellence that we want in our classrooms. And I think this budget gets to where we're trying to go. We appreciate everything that happened last year. We appreciate the budget getting passed, but guess what? We wanted the same thing to happen this year because it needs to be in order for us to make sure that we are producing the excellence that we're trying to get to. I remember when Dr. Bedell took his position, and his immediate speech was, "We're great. Well, we're good." No, I think his words were, "We're good, but we want to be great." And how do you get to greatness? It costs. So as we are closing this up, I really think that everyone has done an excellent job here, not only with your amendments, but being a good steward of the government's money. But I don't think the budget is egregious. I think it's necessary. And I ask that everyone out there in the administration supports the budget because it is a budget that's needed. Figure out a way to get me $24 million is what I'm going to ask you to do. That's all I got.
Thank you, Ms. Dent. I would just like to add a reminder of a statistic. I've said a lot, we've heard a lot. We are the third wealthiest county in this state. We are at, depending on where you go, 15th, 16th, 18th, whether it's starting salaries for our teachers or per pupil expenditure per year. That is a huge gap. There is nothing more important than our children and our education. I said last year about the budget we passed, this represents the real cost, And that, as has been noted, includes things that we know weren't put in here because choices had to be made. We need more teachers than we have currently FTEs for, but we also know the difficulty with that. So I will be proud to support this budget. I urge our funders, the county executive, the county council, to fund this to the fullest extent possible. And I urge the public, if you care about this, advocate for it. Go out and advocate for it. Tell your county council members, tell the county executive that this matters to you, that this matters to your children, that this matters to all of our future, because it's imperative. There is nothing more important than getting education right. So with that, Ms. Scholheim, your light is on.
I just had a question. Will Mr. Silkworth be making the, okay. Great.
Yes.
That was my
Yep.
question. Thank you.
So, Mr. Silkworth, I believe you have a motion.
I think I do. Thank you, Madam President. So it is my honor, and I move for the approval of the superintendent's recommended fiscal year's 2024 operating budget as amended.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Howell.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Scholheim,
Aye.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin.
Yay.
Motion passes 8-0.
So A thank you again. I believe a huge amount of work has gone into this. We are tremendously grateful, and we didn't keep you quite as late as we have in the past, so that's a good thing, I guess. Mr. McGrath?
And I would just like to thank all of the constituents, all the young people, all the students who have come out and advocated. I just want to say you all make this system work by advocating and getting involved.
Yes. I believe Dr. Bedell would like to say something from on high, wherever he is. Yes.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay,
hear
all
you.
right, yes. I just sat here and listened to the deliberation, and I think we're very thankful of the support of our school board for this budget. And as Ms. Frank and I were talking the other day in our quarterly, we always talk about when we make these type of requests and what we're asking for, we know that there has to be a return on the investment. And I think as we continue to do the work that we have to do, getting ready to build out this strategic plan, being able to really get out and recruit hard to try to make sure that we can not only bring in good talent, but keep the talent that we have here. This budget really does put us in a really good position. And I think it will instill a level of confidence in the people that we're trying to recruit. That is, as long as we produce and do our work and make sure that our kids are prospering socially, emotionally, and academically, this budget will then also assure that adults are being taken care of in our school district too. So I just want to thank all of you. I have an 8:30 dinner reservation. I was hoping that we would get done by that time. But thank you all, and we look forward to continuing to work together. Now it's on to the next phase of working with the county executive and the county council, and I look forward to that next phase of experience with the budgeting process. Also, I do want to thank our team. As Ms. Dent said, we made a lot of cuts, and it was just, if money was infinite, everybody would be phenomenal because you'd have the resources you need to really have everybody just wanting to work in education. But we had to give up a lot still, but we wanted to make sure that we did operate with fiscal prudence in an effort to show that we're being responsible with the resources that we have, and also needing to take care of the things that we haven't been able to take care of internally before we go out and ask for more. So I do want to thank our team, Monique, Bob, Maureen, Matt Stansky, and everybody else that supports this school district. Thank you all, and have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thank you, and have a wonderful dinner.
Dr. Tobin,
Yes, Ms. Ellis.
just a point of clarification for the public to make sure they know that Dr. Bedell is in a different time zone, and he was not complaining that we kept him from dinner. He was actually expressing his delight that he's going to
Yes.
get dinner.
Yes, he's currently west of us. Yes, he will be making his dinner reservation for everybody's edification. So we do have one last review item, the 7.01 monthly financial status report. Mr. Stansky, any questions, concerns from anyone? Nope. All right.
Madam President, I
Yes.
make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Do I have a fight on my hands? No. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you.